The hallway smelled of burnt coffee and lemon disinfectant, and the sound of my daughter's voice was sharp enough to slice right through it. "What do you mean they dropped me from AP Lit?" she was saying to the vice principal, her cheeks flushed red. I had been called in on my lunch break, still in my work jacket, not even knowing why. The principal's secretary averted her eyes when I asked what was going on. Then, as I rounded the corner toward the office, I heard laughter from the alcove near the payphone. It was Tom's voice, deep, amused, almost smug. She really thought that college fund was for her kid. God, Jerry, I can barely keep a straight face when she talks about Ivy League tours. There was a scrape of his shoe on tile, but he didn't see me standing in the shadow, frozen. "Yeah, I moved half of it into a term deposit for Anna." "Exactly. My niece deserves a shot, too. Family first, right?" My chest felt like someone had poured ice water straight into my lungs. I wasn't even sure which hit harder, the fact that he'd diverted the money, or the casual cruelty in his tone about my daughter. The same man who'd sat at every one of her birthday dinners, who'd been in the stands for her first recital, who called her kiddo whenever she passed. I pressed myself back against the wall, my fingers gripping my phone, debating whether to step out and confront him right there. But in the other direction, through the glass of the principal's door, I could see my daughter sitting stiff in the chair, biting her lip, and I knew she'd already had enough humiliation for one day. Tom ended the call with a laugh and walked off toward the main lobby like nothing had happened. And I stood there, my nails digging hard into my palm, already thinking about what this meant. Not just for my daughter's AP Lit class, but for the future I had promised her. If I'd known how far he'd already embedded himself into the bones of our family's finances, I might have turned and followed him right then. But instead, I walked into that office, ready to hear how much damage he'd already done. And that was only the beginning. Shall I write the next chapter? The vice principal's voice had that practiced calm, the one they use when they're delivering bad news they know will land like a punch. "Mrs. Carter, the enrollment for the enrichment program was terminated because tuition hasn't been paid in 3 months. We sent notices. I never received anything," I cut in. Then I thought of Tom, who insisted 3 years ago that he handle all the important mail, since bills and official documents just stress you out. My stomach turned. Sophia, my daughter, sat stone still beside me, her hair falling into her face. She wouldn't look at me, a sign she was holding back tears. "Is there any way to reinstate her?" I asked. The vice principal shrugged, glancing at a policy printout. "If we paid in full by the following Monday, maybe? If not, her class schedule would be cut, and her eligibility for early college credit would vanish." As we walked to the car, Sophia whispered, "Mom, wasn't Grandpa's account for this?" Her voice cracked on the word Grandpa. I squeezed her hand, trying to sound steady. "Yeah, it was. My father started that college fund the week she was born. We'd talked for years about how it would give her choices I never had. Then, after Dad died, Mom said managing it was too complicated for me. So Tom took over. I was 19, trying to finish community college, paying rent from my job at the grocery store. It seemed easier then to let him handle it. Now here we were, years later, my daughter at the edge of losing huge opportunities, and control over that fund wasn't in my hands at all. That night, I brought it up to Mom in the kitchen. She was washing salad greens. Tom sitting at the table scrolling through his phone. Sophia was dropped from her AP course because the tuition wasn't paid, I said, staring him down. I thought the fund Grandpa left covered this. Tom looked up slowly, an amused curl on his lips. The fund's for college, Molly, not a bunch of overpriced high school extras. That's not what Dad said when he set it up, I shot back. Tom chuckled like I was a child throwing a tantrum. You're overreacting. It's still there. You just don't understand investments and timing. Mom didn't speak. just kept rinsing lettuce as if silence could make me drop it. But hearing him reduce Grandpa's promise to some timing excuse only set my resolve deeper. If he thought I'd accept being shut out of a decision this important, he didn't know me at all. What I didn't expect was how quickly the micro-slights would start stacking up, the kind that don't seem worth fighting over individually, but drag you under when you see them together. Shall I write the next chapter? The next morning, I found the first one waiting for me like a splinter under my skin. Sophia's acceptance packet from the summer pre-college math program had been opened. Not just opened, but folded in half, the thick envelope creased beyond repair. She swore she hadn't touched it. I knew I hadn't. When I asked Tom, he smirked. You shouldn't leave important mail lying around if you don't want people to see the fine print. Did they tell you it cost $5,000 for a few weeks of teenage babysitting? It's not babysitting, I said. It's a program that directly impacts her scholarship opportunities. He shrugged. Or you could just wait till she's in college and see if she still wants to take math seriously. Kids change their minds. That sounded suspiciously like his advice from last month when he stopped sharing the login for the account site, the one with the balance for my dad's fund. He claimed he'd reset the password for security after an attempted breach. He'd said it so casually over dinner that night, I nearly dropped my fork. But when I offered to set up shared two-factor authentication, he waved it off. I'll keep the info safe. You'd just forget the password anyway. At first, I told myself these were little things. Maybe he truly thought he was protecting the money, but the pattern was impossible to miss. Last week, while we were cleaning out a closet, he accidentally tossed Sophia's old laptop charger into the donation bin, despite multiple reminders that she needed it. 2 weeks ago, he forgot to hand me a message from Sophia's guidance counselor about a scholarship info session that ended up passing without us. It was as if every step toward her college future was being quietly undercut. I told Mom I was getting concerned, trying to keep my voice calm. She pursed her lips and said, "Molly, Tom just has different priorities. You can't expect him to prioritize your daughter over the entire family." "Over the family?" I asked. "This is my dad's fund. He made it clear." But she cut me off, glancing toward the living room where Tom was. "Don't make this about Dad's intentions. You know how your imagination gets when you're stressed." It was the first time I realized that if Tom was going to pull this off, Mom would help him, whether she believed him or just didn't want conflict. And that meant I was officially the only person in the house willing to call this what it was: sabotage. I just didn't realize yet that speaking up would get me painted as something far worse. Shall I write the next chapter? By Friday night, the sabotage had turned into something uglier, the kind of invisible provocation that leaves you doubting your own sanity. We were in the kitchen, the three of us, after dinner. Sophia had gone upstairs to study. I said evenly, "Tom, the enrichment program needs payment by Monday, or she permanently loses her AP credits." He sighed theatrically, leaned back in his chair. "And here we go again. You won't let the money grow. You want to blow it on vanity courses so you can brag on Facebook." "What are you talking about?" My voice rose. "It's always about appearances with you," he said calmly, in that tone designed to get under my skin. "You want to parade your gifted daughter around here so people think you raised her right. Meanwhile, my side of the family could actually use the help without the showmanship." I looked to my mother, desperate for her to intervene, but she only said, "Molly, don't be dramatic. Tom's trying to explain there are smarter ways to use limited resources." "Limited?" I choked out. "Dad's account was fully funded until you—" Tom slammed his palm on the table so hard the glasses rattled. "Enough. I'm done being accused of theft in my own home. Maybe you're just jealous that I've been a better provider these last 15 years than you've ever been." The word jealous hit me like a slap. It wasn't just an insult. It was a trap. Because once they painted me as an irrational, envious daughter, I'd have no credibility. That's exactly how he wanted it to look. I bit my lip hard enough to taste blood. realizing that even if I collected proof someday, the damage to my credibility in this house started right here. He stood, grabbed his coffee mug, and left the kitchen. I sat in the onion and soap-scented silence with Mom staring at her plate, wondering what exactly she thought she was protecting. I didn't realize the next blow wouldn't happen in private, but in front of an entire room of people who would see firsthand exactly what he thought of my daughter. Shall I write the next chapter? It happened 2 nights later at the PTA fundraising dinner, the kind of small-town event where everyone knows everyone else, and reputations are currency. The gym was strung with white Christmas lights, round tables draped in plastic cloths, raffle baskets lined up near the podium. Parents milled around clutching paper plates of pasta and complimentary wine. Sophia was helping set up the silent auction table when Tom arrived late, his blazer smelling faintly of aftershave and cigar smoke. He didn't offer to help. He went straight to a knot of parents near the dessert table. These were the same people I'd seen him butter up for years at neighborhood barbecues. When someone, one of the football dads, brought up college plans for seniors, I heard it, clear as the jangle of the raffle bell. "Well," Tom said loudly enough for 2 tables to hear, "maybe if Molly didn't throw money away on dance classes and field trips, her kid could afford community college without draining dear old grandpa's savings. But hey, priorities. Guess twirling in a tutu comes before learning anything useful." There was a pause. A polite, embarrassed chuckle from one man. A woman looked down at her plate. Sophia froze mid-step with a stack of auction sheets in her hand, the color draining from her cheeks. I felt the air thicken with that awkward public shame, the kind you can't slap away after everyone hears it. I walked over, forcing my legs to move. "That's inappropriate," I said firmly, my voice low but shaking. Tom didn't apologize. He grinned, said, "Just making conversation," and took a bite of tiramisu like nothing had happened. All night, I noticed the sidelong glances, parents whispering when they thought I couldn't hear, my daughter avoiding my eyes. By the time we left, the damage was done. It wasn't just about the money anymore. Tom was planting seeds in the community, framing my desire to protect my kids' education as vanity, indulgence, selfishness. And in a town like ours, image sticks deeper than truth. That night, while Sophia holed up in her room, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. My plan was simple. I'd go to the bank first thing Monday with a copy of Dad's original account paperwork and insist on answers. Concrete proof would speak louder than any of his smirks. What I didn't know was how thoroughly Tom had locked me out long before I even thought to ask. Shall I write the next chapter? On Monday morning, I stood in the sterile chill of the bank lobby, clutching a faded folder I'd dug out of my father's old desk. Inside were the original statements from the college fund, his signature, my name, and the clause that the funds were to be used solely for the educational purposes of his granddaughter, Sophia Carter. The banker, a clean-cut man with careful hair, greeted me with professional warmth. But when I explained the situation and slid the papers across his desk, his smile twitched faintly. He clicked through his computer, then looked at me with that expression professionals adopt when they're about to say something legally precise. "Ms. Carter, according to our records, the account is a custodial investment managed jointly by your mother and Thomas R. He's been listed as a managing co-signer since 2008. I blinked. "That's impossible. I was supposed to take over after I turned 21. He nodded politely to the folder I'd brought. "That was the original plan, yes. But in 2008, the account structure changed. You were 19 at the time. A request to add Mr. Or as a co-signer and managing party was processed, with your mother's authorization." My pulse roared in my ears. That was the year I'd been drowning in shifts at the grocery store, trying to pass night classes. I'd signed dozens of forms Mom had slid under my nose. Insurance, tax things. Because she said it was just paperwork we need for the estate. Had one of those been the cosigner change? Can I remove him? I asked, my tone sharper now. Not without consent from both current cosigners or a court order, the banker replied. Consent I would never get. And now I could see the shape of the trap. I had no legal standing until I either convinced Mom to side with me, which she wouldn't, or dragged both of them into court. I thanked the banker, hiding my shaking hands as I slid the folder back into my tote. In the parking lot, I sat in my car staring at the wheel. My instincts screamed that Tom wasn't just planning to help his niece. He was already moving toward locking us out completely. I needed to know how soon. I needed to hear it from his own mouth. And I was about to get the chance sooner than I expected. Shall I write the next chapter? It happened that same night, like fate had shoved me into the right hallway at the right moment. I'd just come home from work, the house dim except for the glow spilling out of the den. Tom's voice carried through the half-open door. He was on speakerphone, pacing slowly on the carpet. I froze, because I recognized the tone, that half-smirk he used when he thought he was getting away with something. I told you, Anna, I'm shifting it this week. Before she catches on, he said. A pause. His sister's voice crackled faintly through the phone. No, she doesn't have access. She wouldn't even know where to start. By Friday, it'll be spread across 2 accounts, so Molly's brat can't drain the college fund before you get your share. Molly's brat. The words lodged in my throat like a stone. I'll take the heat with her mom, Tom continued. She always folds if I tell her the market's unstable. We'll just say we're protecting the principal amount. He chuckled. And anyway, what's Molly going to do? Lawyer up? She doesn't have the cash. Something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in cold, precise focus. I realized I'd been standing with my phone in my hand since I walked in. And now, without breathing, I tapped the red record button on the voice memo app. I waited until his conversation wound down, the smug laughter carrying through the doorway one last time. As he hung up, I stepped away silently, padding down the hallway and into the kitchen, my heart pounding. The recording was over 2 minutes long, crisp, clear, damning. This was no longer about suspicions or priorities or different perspectives. This was proof of intent, proof that he wasn't passively managing the fund. He was actively stealing it from my daughter. I played the recording once, my hand shaking but my mind sharp. Then I saved it twice more and sent a copy to my personal email. I could feel the scale tipping. We weren't in the territory of family disagreements anymore. This was war. The only question was, would I fire the first shot quietly, or make it so public he'd never be able to spin it into one of his smug little jokes? Shall I write the next chapter? The answer came to me the next morning, sometime between staring at my coffee and rereading the fine print in Dad's account documents for the 100th time. Quiet wouldn't work. Quiet gave him time. And time was exactly what he was trying to buy before siphoning the last of the fund. I still remembered my father's lawyer, an older man named David Strickland, who'd handled the estate after Dad died. I'd been 19, half lost in grief, barely keeping up with the paperwork. But David had been patient, explaining every clause and urging me to hang on to these documents in case you ever need them. Well, I needed them now. I called his office from the back porch, pacing under the weight of that recording. The receptionist hesitated when I gave my name, then, after a moment, said, "David told me to tell you, if anything about your father's accounts ever came up, you should bring in all files immediately. Can you come in today?" 2 hours later, I was sitting across from David in his paneled office, feeding him every detail from the overheard call to the bank meeting. His expression hardened slightly at each beat, his pen scrawling quick lines on his legal pad. What Tom has done, given the wording here, he tapped the original trust clause I'd brought, is beyond his legal authority. If your father specifically designated sole benefit to your daughter, no discretionary withdrawals to unrelated minors are permissible. We can seek an emergency injunction to freeze the account before the transfer is complete. The word emergency made my pulse race. Will that stop him? I asked. It'll stop him from moving the funds, and it will trigger a review. But Molly, understand this. Once we file, it's public record. Your mother will know. The rest of the family may know. This will break open. Break open. That was exactly what Tom never wanted. He danced his manipulations in shadows and smirks, never where light could catch them. I thought of Sophia sitting in her stripped AP class, avoiding my eyes because she was embarrassed on my behalf. Imagining her losing the college she dreamed of because I hadn't wanted to make a scene made my stomach turn. I looked David in the eye. File it. Now. By the time I left his office, my decision was a living thing in my chest. I wasn't going to corner Tom in private just to hear him spin lies. I was going to corner him where no lie could work, in front of my mother, Sophia, and every pair of ears that needed to hear exactly what kind of man he was. But the way I staged it, that was going to be the kill shot. Shall I write the next chapter? I waited until Sunday family dinner, the one non-negotiable tradition in our house. No excuses, no absences, not even for the flu. Everyone would be there. My mother at the head of the table, Tom beside her, Sophia across from me. This time, I had a little something extra. My phone connected to the small Bluetooth speaker I'd hidden behind the row of family photos on the mantel. Dinner started as always, with bowls of roasted potatoes and roast chicken passed around. Mom asking about Sophia's homework. Tom making smug little quips about kids these days and their useless degrees. I let him talk. I even nodded here and there, the way you do when you know you're about to drop something that will shatter the room. Once plates were mostly empty, I folded my hands on the table. You know, I said evenly, I've been thinking about what you said at the PTA dinner, about Sophia draining Grandpa's fund. Tom smirked, glancing at Mom. I never said, he started, but I held up my phone and tapped play. His voice filled the room, crisp and unmistakable. Before she catches on, by Friday, it'll be spread across 2 accounts, so Molly's brat can't drain the college fund before you get your share. Every word rolled heavy in the silence. My mother's fork clinked against her plate. Sophia's eyes widened. Tom's face went red, his jaw tightening. You had no right to record me, he snapped. I ignored him, letting the next part play. I'll take the heat with her mom. She always folds. And then, as if choreographed, I shifted my phone so the camera was now beaming this entire dinner via group video chat to 3 of my father's siblings, the same ones who used to handle family finances before Mom married Tom. They'd been waiting silently on the other end, faces grave. One of them spoke through the tiny speaker. Tom, you've just admitted to misappropriating a trust. We heard all of it. My mother shot out of her chair, trying to grab my phone, but it was too late. The sound of truth had already cut through the house like glass breaking. Tom stood, muttering curses, and left the table, the slam of the front door punctuating the chaos. Mom's voice rose behind him, turning on me, but it didn't matter now. The evidence was out. I didn't know yet what the legal process would bring, but I knew in that exact moment that the balance of power had just shifted, and it wasn't shifting back. By the next week, the real shock would come. Not from Tom, but from the paper the court sent that upended his control entirely. Shall I write the next chapter? 3 days later, I was rushing between work meetings when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I nearly ignored it, but something in my gut told me to answer. This is Judge Wilkinson's clerk, a brisk voice said. We've received your attorney's request for an emergency injunction. The court has granted a temporary freeze on all transactions involving the Carter Education Trust until further review. For a moment I couldn't speak. So? He can't touch it? I asked. That's correct. Additionally, given the wording of the trust and potential breach, Mr. R's co-signer status is suspended pending hearing. All parties will be notified. The world went quiet around me, even as coworkers chattered just beyond my cube. I thanked her, hung up, and just sat staring at the wall, letting it sink in. Tom had just been stripped of his legal keys to the fund. That evening, when I arrived home, the air in the kitchen was tight. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. "You humiliated this family," she said, without looking at me. "What I did was protect Dad's legacy from being stolen," I replied. "Tom says," she started, but her voice faltered. The unspoken truth hung between us. It didn't matter what Tom said. Without access, his version of the story meant nothing now. Sophia emerged from her room, holding her phone. "Mom, is it true? He can't touch it anymore?" When I nodded, her shoulders seemed to drop for the first time in weeks. I realized then how much of this tension she'd been carrying silently, afraid it would end with empty promises. In the days that followed, Tom stormed in and out, sometimes slamming doors, sometimes pretending none of it was happening. His family called my phone to accuse me of ruining Anna's chances at college, as if my daughter's future were a disposable luxury. I blocked every last one of them. A week later, my lawyer forwarded me the court's detailed order. It confirmed what we'd hoped. The trust would be placed fully under my control as sole trustee for Sophia, in accordance with my father's original terms. It also specified that no funds could ever be allocated for individuals unrelated by blood. I stood in my tiny bedroom, the paper trembling in my hands. It was over. Legally, anyway. Emotionally, I knew I'd be patching these scars for a long time. But that night, when Sophia sat at the kitchen table filling out applications for the very programs Tom called vanity courses, I felt something I hadn't in months. The steady ground of knowing I had done my job as her mother. Control dressed up as family management is still control. And if you let it, it will wrap around everything you love until you call theft a compromise. I wasn't going to let that be our story. Not now. Not ever again.